Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in a previous session we discussed about 3D arrays and objects. So yesterday we discussed about that what actually objects are. So we said that objects are kind of real entity that are created by using a class. Now we also said that by using this we gave a conclusion that class are nothing but a blueprint which can be used for creating our objects. So we have discussed an example with the student class. So I have created a class, give some entities, some attribute to that particular class, and for creating hundreds of students, instead of creating several classes, I created several, or I can say hundreds of objects for that particular class. So this is how I use the class file for creating different kind of students. So in our previous session we haven't discussed about this point, that is objects live on heap. So today we are going to learn what are heap, how objects get the memory, what are the default values of objects, and how actually they get stored inside the memory. So let's discuss what heap is, and then we'll see a visual representation that how objects get stored in heap. So over here the first point says that heap is used for dynamic memory allocation for objects and GRE classes at the runtime. So don't worry about this line, GRE classes. We'll see what GRE means after a while, like means after some videos we'll be discussing about JDK, GRE and GIT as well. So don't worry about these three words. So today we are not going to focus on this word. So the first line says that heap is used for dynamic memory allocation. So what do we mean by dynamic memory allocation? So when we run a program, when we run a Java program, there are two phases. The first phase is compilation and the second phase is interpretation. So this interpretation phase takes place when we run our Java file, and this compilation takes place when we just compile our file. So this compiling part is nothing but a static part that happens at the compile time, while this interpretation task, that is done by the JVM, is a dynamic part. So dynamic means that happens at a runtime. So heap space is used for storing something that happens or that takes place at the dynamic or at the runtime. So that's the reason why heap is called as dynamic memory allocation, or we can say that heap is used for dynamic memory allocation. Now as I have said that objects are created or objects are stored on heap. So now can you say that when objects are created, at the compile time or at the runtime? So the answer to this is definitely runtime, because as I said that objects live on heap, and if it is living on heap, or if anything that lives on heap, which means there takes place a dynamic memory allocation, that is at the runtime. So this is clear that objects are created at the runtime. So at the compile time we don't have any objects. So I hope this point is clear to everyone. Now the second point says that new objects are always created in the heap space that we already discussed, and the references to this object are stored in the stack memory. I know this point is not at all clear at this moment, but when we have a visual representation that how memory allocation takes place, we'll get a clear idea of this point. So the next point says that object references with depth is JVM specific, that we already discussed in our previous session, that why object size is not predefined like int and other values. So first of all, the last point says that the default value of object reference is null. So now you may ask me why it is null, why it is not 0 or any such kind of values. So our objects can have several properties. Our objects can have name as well, can have phone number as well, can have email, or can have n number of attributes inside it. So now this n number of attributes cannot have a same value or cannot have a particular default value like this. But if I don't create my object at the runtime, we'll see how object is created at the runtime, don't worry about this. But now this is not predefined. This thing or this attribute or our class student is not predefined. We are defining this particular class. That is, this is a kind of non-primitive data type. So for all the non-primitive data types like objects or arrays and strings, the default value is null. Okay, so now we'll see how memory allocation takes place, how the heap space is used by the objects, and how other variables like int and float gets the memory allocation. So now let's discuss that point over here. So let's say this is our memory, and inside the memory we have two parts. First part is of stack memory and the other part is of heap memory. So now if I create, previously what I was doing was int a is equals to 65. So this a was over here. But now what happens if I create a object of this student class? Yes, so now what happens? First we have to break this into two parts, this left and the right part. So the left part, or we can say that this get assigned or this gets the memory at the static time, that is at the compile time. And as I said, objects are created at the runtime. By using the new keyword, we are saying that this is a kind of new object. So this part happens at the runtime. So I hope this is clear to everyone. So this thing is happening at the compile time. So what happens over here? S is over here in our stack memory, and now this S at the runtime gets some object value. So now this object is over here in the heap memory. As I said, objects are always created in the heap memory. And also we have discussed that we don't have to worry about this student, because when we deal with the constructor we are going to learn this point. So yes, objects are created runtime, and runtime allocation is carried out by heap memory. So everything that happens at the runtime gets the memory inside the heap. So over here our student object is created at the heap. What our variable, that is our S variable, is at the stack memory. So now what happens whenever I call the stack? So this points to the stack memory, but there is no value inside the stack memory. Now you may ask me that how can I get the value for this particular S, because it is just the simple variable. So now internally this S is pointing to this location. So whenever I call this, it goes over here and internally it fetches the heap area and looks for the value for that particular student. So this is how objects get memory, means object get stored inside the memory. So now you should be aware why heap memory, means how heap memory allocates the space for student, means for new objects, and also you should be aware that all the objects are created at the runtime. Yes, while our normal variable like int a, float b or double d, all such variables are created at the compile time. We haven't discussed anything like runtime, so all of them are created at the compile time. So if they are created at the compile time, which means they have the value or they have the space over here inside the stack memory. So all the variables are over here, and also the method invocation. So again we haven't completed the method, so we don't have to go into that part for now. So yes, so this S is over here and the actual object is over here, and this S is pointing to this object. So now as we discussed that our arrays that we discussed in our previous two sessions, the arrays are also non-primitive, which means they are also a kind of objects. We have already discussed this. So now where this arrays should be created, you will say it should be created at runtime. So if it is created at the runtime, where it is supposed to get stored? Definitely the heap area. So now we'll have a visual representation of how our arrays got allocated inside the memory. Okay, so let us take our one dimensional this array. So over here, what happens to this array at this moment of time? See, breaks it into two parts, the left part and the right part. So the left part gets the memory at the compile time only. So let's say this is a memory, the stack and the heap, stack memory, heap memory and our actual memory. Yes, so now this int a or this declaration is over here, we can say a is over here, and now the right hand side is over here. So all the other thing like this means the actual object is in the heap. So whenever I invoke a like this, it first goes over here and then it gets the value from the heap memory. So this is how the heap memory allocation takes place. So the right hand side always over here, whenever we use a new keyword or whenever we try to create a new object, it gets stored inside the heap memory, and other than this means if it is not an object, it gets stored inside the stack memory. Yes, so these are the two parts of memory, and we can say that heap is a special kind of memory in which dynamic allocation takes place, or we can say that our objects get stored in the heap memory. Other than the objects, everything else gets stored inside the stack memory. So this is the representation that how the memory allocation takes place for objects and non-object stuff. That is a primitive stuff. Okay, so now yes, so I hope yes, so first point is clear. The second point says that objects are always created in the heap space. We already discussed it. And the references, that is a reference variable like s, get stored in the stack memory, and this stack memory then refers to or points to our heap space. So this is how we get the data of our object, or we can store the data of our objects. So for object references, bit size is JVM specific. We have already discussed this point. Yes, so now before moving further, what we'll do, we'll create some objects and then we'll learn about variable kinds, that is instance variable and static variable, and again the third one will be covering when we learn methods. So let's move down to the Eclipse and let me create a new class. Okay, so let me create a new class over here and let us give the name of the class as student. At the end of all the session, we'll discuss what are the best practice, what are the naming convention that we should follow, and what we should not try to perform, or what kind of code we should not write, and we'll also have some practice question when we complete our course. Okay, so over here we have created a student class. Now as we have said that this student can have several entities, attributes like name, attributes like email, attributes like phone number, int age, string gender. Yes, so this is how our object or our student is supposed to get the values. Means all the students must have these 5 attributes. Clear? But now I want to create 10 different students. So shall I create 10 different class file like student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4? The answer to this is no, because we have already discussed this will create n number of files which will be very difficult for us to handle. So what we will do is we will create objects for this particular class. So now if I try and create student s is equals to new student, yes, so this is how I create an object for this particular class. The name of my object is s, the s is pointing to this new student and the type of this object is student, that is based on our class. So now as soon as I create this complete student, what property does this as get? As gets the property of name, email, phone, age and gender, correct? So now there can be different students like this. So let me create few more. Okay, I have created 4 students. So let me give the name as S1, S2 and S3. So now I have created 4 students. So now I want to point the name of this student 1, that is S1. I have to point the name of this S1. So can I do, okay, so can I do name like this? No, because now this name is the general, this is just the blueprint. A blueprint is showing us this is a blueprint of student and each student must have this kind of attributes. So this is our blueprint. Now if I ask you go to the 3rd floor of the blueprint, can you go? No, you cannot. So you will ask me which building am I supposed to go? So that's how we can say that I want to print the name of S1 student. The student, this is the object name of a student. So S1 dot name. So you have the use this dot operator and you have to give the variable name or the member name. So you want to look for the name member of S1 object. Yes, so don't worry about why we are using strings for name, email and gender. We'll discuss string later, but for now what we can say that, see, for now we have char for storing only single character like A, B, C or D, or we can use boolean for true or false. But now there is a need of storing names like Rohan or any other names like Arun, Arvind, some names like this. So can I store it in char? No, I cannot store it in char. So string is the alternative for performing this task. So for now we can say that string can hold a character sequence, a word, a sentence or anything like that. For now we can just say this, but at this moment of time we are learning the object, so our main focus should be on the object. So I want to fetch the name of S1. Now can you tell me what will be the value of S1 means S1 dot name? Does S1 have any value? No, S1 don't have any value for now. We haven't assigned any value to it. So which data type name is? It is string. So string is a non-primitive data type. So does it get a default value? Yes, it does. So we get the default value of null. So let me print this. Yes, we get the output as null. So before doing this we have to say S1 dot name, we have to assign some name to it, and in string if we want to give any value we need to use the double quotes. So let me say the name as Rohan. Yes, so now I have assigned this name Rohan to S1. I can say S1 dot email. I can assign this as well. So I can say rohan@gmail.com. This is the Gmail. If I want to say S1 dot gender, yes, so I can say male. S1 dot phone, I have used the long. Yes, so I can give values like this. Now this goes beyond the int range, so we need to give the tailing L, and we have already discussed this concept. Yes, now again we need to give age. So yes, we can give age like this 20. So this is how I define an object over here. I have given the property like this, the name property, the email property, the gender property, the mobile number and the age to this particular object. Now I can do the same for S2 as well, the same for S3 as well. So now I don't have to create several classes and I don't need to create such member in all the different classes. I can use this particular class, I can create the object of this particular class, and I can give the details to all the attribute of that class. Now if I try to point system.out.println s1 dot email, now we have assigned some email to s1, so we'll get rohan@gmail.com. yes, so we have got this understanding that why do we need a object, how can I create object, and how can I store values to a particular object. So yes, this is clear to everyone, I hope. Do you have any doubts? You can just ask me. So one more question, that if I say student S4, does student S4 gets any property? Though it is a kind of, see, let me do system.out s4.null, sorry, s4.name. Let me run this. Yes, okay, we'll see this error. Yes, it is inside the method, so I cannot perform this task for now. But what I am trying to say is, for now S4 has not get initialized yet. So what will happen, S4 is not even having the name property, not even having the age, gender and all this. So if I try to point to this variable, we'll get an error called as null pointer exception, and we'll see that when we move to the methods as well. So don't worry about for that now. Yes, so I hope it is clear to all. So Suraj is asking that isn't phone number can stored in string? See, string is kind of character sequence. If you want to store number, or if I say you have to store 100, which variable you will use? Definitely int, correct? So for storing numbers, it is always preferred to go with int, and if the range is big, you can use long, and if it is a floating point number, you can go with double. So this is the thing that we are following the best practices, because in string we can have also characters like this. I can also have this, correct, inside the string. But if I only want number, so we must follow some strict rule, because if I use long, it will give us an error if I try to, or if I by mistakenly give any alphabetic character inside the long. So it will be helpful for us only. Otherwise later when we want to retrieve this, we want to convert the string to long. Yes, so for storing the name, you are again asking that why we are using string for name, email and gender. So let me again explain you. So for character, can you suggest me any other data type other than string where I can store Rohan? There is no such data type for till now, correct? We have discovered char, but char can only store a single character like A or like B, like C, like R, like this. Int cannot store this, int only stores number. So for storing a character sequence, what do I mean by character sequence? Character sequence means like this: Rohan, any special character, any numbers, any spaces, or any sentences like this. So this is a character sequence. So for storing this, I can use string. And now you will say you haven't discussed about the properties of string. So properties of string will be covered later. First we have to get a better understanding what how objects are created, why do we need objects, and what are the different kinds of variable. We'll discuss the methods and all, then we'll move to the string, because string is again a very interesting concept. So it will have a dedicated section for getting the understanding of string. Yes, so now we have discovered why do we need a object, how I can define some property to a particular object. Now we'll see variables. See, previously I was declaring this variable inside our main method only, but now I have declared this variable at the class level. inside the student class directly. So now we'll see what are the different kinds of variable and how can I use them and what is the difference between them. Yes, okay. So first we'll see, we are going to learn static and instance variable together. So now static and instance variable, both of them are declared directly within the class. Okay, so if something is getting declared directly within the class like this, see, this is our class body. If I remove the main method, then to this variable are there, which means I have defined them directly inside this curly braces, that is I have declared them directly inside the class body. So that's the reason why they have been called as global variable, because now I can access these variables anywhere inside my class. So this is the meaning of global variable or declared directly within the class. Now this instance variable represents the state. Don't worry about this point, we'll see this, gets the default value, and for this static, okay, they also gets the default value. We'll again see this, because when we were dealing with int, means the data type, we have missed that means we have not discovered what default value to int a gets. So we'll see that one as well. So now let us understand this first. So first you need to see this, that for declaring any static variable you have to use a static keyword. So for example, I want to say this as static, so I need to use this static keyword before this. So this is how I declare a static variable. Okay, so now we are going to understand why do we need such two different kind of variables. Okay, so now yes, let's take a real life example. You have opened a classes or your college. Okay, this is your college, you are rolling out some admission forms. Okay, so you are rolling out some admission forms, so there are 100 students waiting for getting the admission over here. How many admission form you will give them? How many admission form you will provide them? The answer to this is definitely I'll provide 100 forms to them. Okay, now what you will do? Will you write or will you type each 100 forms? No, you will say that I'll create one form, I'll give some details to it, like okay, you have to fill the name, the email, the age, gender and phone. Okay, so this is the admission form, this is the requirement for the admission form. Or to be precise, let's take a real time. Okay, first we'll see this, the paperwork, then we'll see the online process. Okay, so you have created the first form. Now what you will do? You will take the Xerox copy of them. Correct? So what we can say that this is our actual class and I have took the Xerox copies of it, which means this is our objects. So I have given this form to each of the student, to each of the 100 student, like each one student will have their particular form. So this is how I'll pass out the forms to each student. But now we are going to learn about instance and static variables. So instance and static variables. What happens at the time of instance variable? If I am declaring a instance variable as string, okay, like this, string name, and over here let me declare the same variable as static string name. See, now this is a kind of string, so you can store values to it inside the double quotes, any values like John, Rohan or any such values. Correct? Now you will ask me what is the difference between the static and the instance variable. So now I'll say that whenever you create a object, of this particular class, so let's say student S is equals to a new copy of this variable will be made available for this s. Okay, and now so if I create s1, what will happen now? And as I said, for instance variable, a new copy will be created for s1 as well. So how many name variable do we have now? We have two name variable for now. If I create the third one, how many name variable do we have now? You will say 2 plus 1, that is 3 variable, because as soon as I create a new object, we get a new copy for this variable. So this means that number of copy of instance variable, okay, number of copies of instance variable are equal to number of objects created, correct? So if I have 10 objects, I will have 10 name variable, am I right? Yes. So which means this is means the number of copies of instance are equals to number of copies of objects. I hope it is clear to you all till now. Now let's see how static works. Okay, so now till now you have created 3 variables. So let's say this is the first student, the second student object, the third student object, s, s1, s2. These were having the name variable, even this was having his own name variable, and this was having her own name variable, correct? So they are have their own name. Now if I say this is not a kind of instance variable, this is a kind of static variable, so this stuff is based on instance variable, because for first object we have its particular name, for second he have its particular name, and third have its own copy, correct? So all of these 3 have their own copy, so they are not interrupting or they are not intercepting each others, correct? But now if I say, if I make static string name, if I make it like this, now let me tell you what happens. I have created the first object, I have created the second object as well, and the third object as well. So now what happens? The name is a static variable, so now there is only one name variable and each one of them are sharing it. Okay, so now first student is created, I say s dot name is equals to Rohan. Okay, now what name is over here? The name over here is Rohan. Then I say that s1 dot name is equals to Arun. So now this Arun, this s1 object does what? It don't have his own individual copy of the name variable. So what it does, all of them are sharing this, it overrides this name and it changes it to Arun. Now the third student, that is s2, comes into the picture, and if I say s2 dot name equals to John, so what John will do? John will again override this and make the name as John. So now after these 3 steps, if I say s dot name, what will happen? S is pointing to this, it is pointing to this heap memory, inside the heap memory it is pointing to this name. So what name will be getting printed for this s? Definitely it will be printed as John, because John has overwritten the value of this and Arun has overwritten the value of Rohan. So which means John will get printed, because there is only one copy made available for all of them. Okay, so this one copy is shared among all. So this is the reason why John will get printed, because Rohan is got overwritten. I hope this is clear to all of you till now. Okay, so let me take some extra examples, let me take some extra attributes, and let's again go with the student form, the application process. So your college, okay, now your college, 3 students wants to get admission. You have only one form. You have made the form as static. Okay, so you have static, all this stuff inside it is static. So like static name, static email, static gender. Okay, so now the first student comes over here and means gives the name as Rohan, gives some email XYZ, and gives some gender as male. The second student again comes, overwrites it and changes the name to Arun and gives his own details to it. Now the third student comes into the picture and you have given the same form to all of them. Okay, you are just passing the same form, so they are just going to overwrite all the details and they are just going to say, so the third student says that okay, I am writing the John over here. So now if, can you say that what is the name of the first student? No, it is not possible to you. You cannot read that because other student have just cut it and wrote his name over here, and the third student again cut it and the name now is John. So can you tell me the name of the first student? It will be John over here. Correct. So this is how the static works. So static and instance again. Okay, sorry. Instance variable and the static variable. So they are created globally. How many copies? Copies equals to number of objects created. Okay, but now for static, is it equals to number of object created? No, it is always one. Okay, just keep that in mind whether you have a object or not. As soon as your class is loaded, a copy of static is made available. Okay, so there is only one copy of static variable. Okay, so if you have 10 different objects, all of them will be sharing to this particular variable. Yes, so I hope this is clear to all. So that's the reason why they are called as class variable, because as soon as class is loaded, a copy of all the static stuff is made. Yes, so is it clear to everyone? Yes, so if you have any doubts, you can just ask me. Yes, so over here static have only one copy, and if I have 0 objects, how many copy of instance will be there? You will say 0, because number of copies of instance equals to 0. So for calling any variable, so if I am having string s in my class body, can I call it directly? You will say no. If there are no objects, there is no copy, so how come how will I able to call this s? So for calling the s, you should have at least one copy. So you should have at least one object for this. So you will create an object for this, and then you will be pointing using this object to this particular variable. So this is how it takes place. This is how objects gets created, and this is how, what is the difference between instance and static variable. Now your question may be like, the next question arises that okay, so if instance is having the separate copy for separate objects, correct? The object 1, object 2 and object 3 have their own name. So yes, obviously this name variable should be of type instance. Correct, agreed. Now your question will be, why do I need a static variable then, if it is only have one copy and all of them will be sharing? So if one changes it, it gets changed for other two as well. Okay, so now what I'll say, this is your college and the admission form is for your college only. So do you need 3 copies? See, if you add a field, okay, if you add a field like college, is 3 copies of this college field needed? No, because you know this form is just for your college. So why don't we make it a static and we fill the college attributes to all? So if I am filling XYZ college, So all of them will be having the same college because this form is only for you. So why do I need to create different forms like this, means different copies of this particular variable? So there are use of static variables as well. So when the thing is obvious, when you are having, when you only need one copy of a particular thing, then you are going to use the static variable, and we'll also see this thing as we proceed. But for now, this is the only example that we can take because we have not discovered much topic yet. So I hope this is clear to everyone, and let's practice this. And if you have any doubts, just ask in the chat box. Yes. So, okay. Now, yes. So this 5 attributes, you know, these are the obvious thing that each of the student will be having different, means each of the student will have the different values for this 5 field. But now let me introduce the college name. So now you know that this college name should be same for all. So why not me XYZ college? Okay, so why don't I create a variable as a static for this particular college name variable? I'll make it a static and I'll fill the value to it. So now what happens now? See, you have to see, I have not created any objects till now. Okay, you have to assume this. I have 0 object in my memory. How many objects do I have? I have 0 objects. So as soon as I try to compile this, or as soon as I loads this, okay, as soon as I run this, let me tell you, okay, I have 0 objects. So what copy do I have? Whose copy do I have? I have copy of college name, and the college name is XYZ college. Why do I have this? Because it is a kind of static and it is always having one copy. So this says that if I don't have any objects, then too I will have a copy of a static variable because they are class variable. Yes, so I have one copy of this particular variable, but now I have 0 copy of student, 0, 0, 0 and 0. So now I created student S, student S1 and S2. So now how many copies of name? 3. How many copies of email? 3 and 3 and 3 and 3. But the copy of college still remains the one only. So now they have their own name, they have their own email, own phone number, age and gender. Name, email, phone number, age and gender. Name, phone, okay, email, phone, age and gender, but all of them are sharing the same college name. So only thing that gets to be changed is their name, their email and all this stuff, but they are not going to change the college name. But later, after some years, if you want to change the name of a college, I know that doesn't happen, but then too, let's consider this scenario. You want to change the college name to ABC. So now you don't have to go to each of this object and change like s dot college name is equals to ABC. You can just change this variable to ABC because all of them are sharing this particular variable only, because there is only one copy of this. So if all of them are sharing to this one copy, if you alter this copy, then the value for all gets altered. So this is how we can use a college name variable, means this is how we can use a static variable, and this is how we can use a instance variable. So I hope now it's very much clear that what is the difference between static and instance variable. So let us practice this one as well. Yes, so now this I'll just create 2 students, okay, 3 students. Yes, I have created 3 students. Now how many copies I have for this name? you will say I have 3 copies, 3 copies, 3, 3, 3 and 0 copies. Okay, now sorry, for this we have 1 copy always. Yes, now it is clear. Now if I try to fetch system.out.println s dot age, because can you call age directly? You will say no, age will be called. See, now there are 3 copies for age, correct, but these 3 copies are only of their particular objects. It is not in general copies, correct. The first copy for s, the second copy for s1, third copy for s3. So now you will get an error, because yes, for now the error will be different, but now the actual reason for this is, if you want to call a particular age, now there will be confusion whose age I am going to return. So he will ask like the which or whose age I want to return. So you need to tell that I need to call the age of s. So that's the reason why you need always a object for calling and for for invoking a instance variable. Yes, so now I'll say s dot age. Now age is a type of int. We have not initialized as age, correct. So what value will I get? 0, correct. For name I'll get as null, because string is non-primitive. Okay, so I hope this much is clear to everyone. So now I can set their name. Yes, so yes, let me take the name as Arun over here. Arun name. Yes, age let me take as 22. Now I'll define the third object as well. Now the third object is s2. Yes, let me give some value. John. Let me give the age as 25. Yes, great. So it is clear till now. I have given all this property to them. I am not supposed to give the college name, because I have given it by default, correct. So if I try to print, okay, so system.out.println as dot email, system.out.println as dot gender, and then system.out.println as dot phone number, system.out.println as dot age. Yes, so if I try to print this will give the detail for s. We'll again see the proof of how the copy is being shared, whether it is shared or not. We'll see that one as well. Yes, okay. So now, okay, let me have some empty lines after printing each and every objects. Okay, so I get their particular value. Like for the first object we have given this detail, for the second object we have given this detail, for the third object we have given this detail. Now let me introduce the college name, like let me invoke the college name as well. Now you would have already guessed that what value I'll get for this, but then too we are going to see this. Yes, so someone is asking the default value for primitive. It is not 0 for all the primitive. Like boolean is also a primitive, but the default value for boolean is false. The default value of query is Unicode escape, correct? The /u and 0000. For char, oh sorry, for floating point it is 0.0. So for primitive they have their particular values, but for non-primitives like array, strings and objects we have the default value as null. Yes, so now let me print college name. Yes, so the college name is same for all of them. Okay, now let me tell you, let me make the name as static. Okay, let me make the name as static and let me make the email as well as static. Okay, let's do this. Okay, let me make the name only static. Okay, now what will happen? If you can guess the output correct, then that will be wonderful. Yes, so now what happens? How many objects for student is available if I don't have any objects? Assume that I don't have any objects. Okay, how many copies of name will be there? You will say 1 because it is a static. How many copies of email? 0. Phone 0, 0, 0, and for this is again static 1. Okay, so now name copy is there and college name copy is there. College name have the value as XYZ college as well. Okay, but name initially have null because I have not initialized any value. Now I introduce S into the picture. I have created an object S, then S1 and then S2. As soon as I do this, email, phone, age, gender, correct, this way variables copy is made available to all of them, but they have their own individual copies of these variables. Am I right? Yes. Yeah, so now they have their particular copy for this. They are not intercepting or they are not reading or writing each their means, all means they are not sharing the same copy. They have their particular copy, they have their individual copies. But for name and for college, are they sharing the same copies? You will say yes, they are sharing the same copies, and for college as well they are sharing the same copies. So now at the line number 16, this name gets changed to Arun because S changed it to Arun. But now after a while at the line number 28, S1 changes it to Rohan. So this gets overwritten, correct, because all of them are sharing. See what happens, it was null over here, then it got changed to Arun. Now this S1 changes it to Rohan, so now this will get changed to Rohan. Now after some time at the line number 42, John changes it and John changes it to John. So if I try to print over here s2 dot name, what output I'll get? I'll get John only. But after this line, okay, after this line, if I try to print s dot name, what s dot name will be? It will be John only. And what s1 dot name will be? It will again John. Okay, it will be again John. The reason, because John has overwritten the values for this. So you should be aware that when to use static and when not to. So now let us guess the execution process. Okay, we'll discuss from this point. Yes. Mm, yes. Okay. Yes. So now what we'll do is we are going to discuss the execution process for this stuff. So now I have created 3 students. Okay, 3 students. How many copies for this name after creating 3 students? One only. For this college name, one. But for this, we have 3 copies. S, S1 and S2. We are at this line. Okay. So at this line, what happens by the end of this 14 lines? What happens? S will have his email copy. S will have his phone copy, age copy, gender copy. Okay, and he is pointing to a name variable, and also he is pointing to a college name. So this college name have got the default value as XYZ college. S1 has its own email, phone, age, gender, and S2 email, phone, age and gender, but they are also pointing to the same name, pointing to the same college name. Okay, now at the line number 16, the line number 16 says that you have to go to S. S is over here. You have to change S name to Arun. Okay, change this to Arun. It was null till now, but we have changed it to Arun. Great. You have to change A's email to arun@gmail.com. You have to change the gender as male. Good. You have to change this to 22. You have to change the phone to some values like 56784. Okay, done. Now at the line number 21, we are going to write the console part over here. Okay, at this left hand side. Line number 21 says that you have to print s.name. S.name. Okay, I will print Arun. Good. After this, you have to print the email, the gender. Now you know this is obvious. This will get printed as it is. So this will get printed like after this Arun @gmail. Then it will print the gender, that is male. After that the phone number, that is 5678, and then the age, that is 22, and the college name is same for all, that is XYZ. Great. Clear till now. Now at the line number 28, what happens is it says that you have to change s1.name to Rohan. Okay, s1 over here, s1.name to Rohan. I have changed it. Okay, now it has changed all this value the same way that how Arun got changed. So now it will print over here, it will print s1.name, that is Rohan. But now after this line, after line number 34, if we try to introduce system.out.println s.name, what will be the output for it? Okay, let's go as the compiler will go. Okay, you have to point to s.name. What is the name over here now? It is Rohan. So it has got overwritten by s1. Okay, so this is the way the static, okay, this is the way the static is being shared by all of them, and we'll try and introduce s.name after this line, and we'll see Rohan, not Arun, because s name is getting changed. Okay, but now after this line, at the line number 42, what happens? Let's see. Line number 42 says that hey, s2 will be changing name to John. So after this, okay, after this line, that is 49, okay, after this line, if I try to print s1 dot name and s dot name, what will happen? Name will be John for both of them, because all of them are over here, pointing over here only, so they will have the same name. Okay, so if one changes the name for static variable, if one changes the name, it gets changed for everyone else. So you have to be aware, that means you should be have a clear idea that when to use static and when to use instance. So now this benefit of static, using static is also, if we have only one copy for 100 objects as well, which means we are saving memory as well. And for objects, it will be having 100 copies for 100 objects, and static will have one copy for 100 objects. So we have saved memory for 99 copies. Yes, so it is also used for memory saving as well. So let us try and introduce some lines after this. And if you have any doubts, you can just ask me. See, now as soon as s gives some name, okay, so if I try and print system.out.println s1.name, see, now s1 have not done anything till now, but then too s1 and s are sharing the same name, so it will be get printed as same only, means it will get the name as well as Arun. Okay, so both of them have got name as Arun without even s1 getting into the picture. So even s2 would have get the same name. So let me say s2 dot name, sorry, yes, so Arun. So let me do this and let me print it every time like this. Yes, now let's see the console. See, it gets changed for, if one changes it, it gets changed for other two, if one changes it, it gets changed for other two. Okay, so again, I hope, like, I had tried to make it as much as easier as I can, and if you have any doubts, you can ask me, and I'll again give you the representation that how this takes place. So what happens in the memory? S1, S2, they have some, all the instance variables like email, gender, age, phone, email, gender, age, phone. We are not looking into this because these have printed different for all their particular details, means if one have changed, it didn't interfere the others detail. But when we deal with the static, what happens? All of them are sharing the same name. So if Arun, see, for now if I say s dot name, will get null because name is not initialized. S1 dot name, again null. S2 dot name, again null. Correct? Yes, it will be null. But now as soon as s changes it to Arun, what will be the output for all three of this? It will be Arun for all, because all of them are sharing this. Okay, even though s1 has not initialized it, but s has done it for all. So Arun will be printed for this as well, for this as well, for this as well. Now s1 changes it to Rohan. So now what will be printed for all three? Rohan. First it was Arun, now it is Rohan. Now the s2 changes it to John. So what will get printed for all? John, John and John. So that's what happened in our console. I hope this is clear to all. See, Arun, Rohan, and John. Yes. So yes. So today we have discussed about the heap memory and also the stack memory a little bit, and after this we have discussed what is dynamic allocation, dynamic memory allocation, how objects get stored, and after this we have discovered instance and static variables, and we have also seen the difference between them, and we have also seen when do we need to use this one of them and how the compilation or how the memory changes for each one of these. Okay, so yes, so I hope this is clear to every one of you, and if you have any doubts you can ask me in the live chat, or you can also comment it in the comment section. And yes, and tomorrow we are going to start with methods, and as soon as we complete methods we'll be dealing with the local variables. So after completing the local variables we will be okay, we don't have session tomorrow because it's Saturday and Sunday day after tomorrow, so we will meet on Monday and we'll learn what are methods, and also we'll see what are local variables, and after completing this local variable we'll be getting completed with all the three kinds of variable. Okay, today we have completed instant and static variable. And someone is asking, can class be declared as static? See, we have not gone to that extent till now. Okay, so we'll see what variations we can make in class. We can make it private or not. Okay, so we don't have to worry about this for now. All right, so I hope this is clear to everyone, and if you have any doubts you can just comment the doubts in the comment section, and in our next session we are dealing with the methods, and then we are dealing with the local variables, and after that we will be dealing with method overloading and all the other stuff. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining the session, and if you have any doubts, as I said, you can comment it down in the comment section.